Michael Jordan just said something about Larry Bird and LeBron James that the internet cannot stop talking about. One sentence. That is all it took for the greatest of all time to end a debate that has been running for years. He did not name names directly, but everyone watching understood exactly what he meant and exactly who he was talking about. After hearing everything Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Gary Payton, Kobe Bryant, and the rest of the legends have said about Larry Bird, do you still think LeBron James belongs in the same conversation? Drop your honest answer in the comments right now. Enjoy yourself, dog. Y'all gave us a run for our money. Yeah, I see it.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Work on that golf game of yours. Let's start with the quote, because everything else in this conversation flows directly from it. Michael Jordan said one of them was feared by legends, and the other one he did not have much to say about. That is it. That is the whole sentence. And if you know anything about Michael Jordan, you know that man does not say things casually or accidentally. Every word he chooses is deliberate. Every opinion he expresses in public has been filtered through the most competitive mind the sport has ever produced. When Jordan says he does not have much to say about someone, that is not a neutral comment. That is a dismissal from the one person whose opinion on basketball greatness carries more weight than anyone else alive. The person he feared was Larry Bird. The person he did not have much to say about was LeBron James. And with that single sentence, Jordan ended a debate that has been running on sports television and social media for the better part of 2 decades. I like people to talk shit to me because it is what it is. I don't hold no grudges. I ain't got no feelings about it. It makes me even better. You know what I'm saying? Because if you was with my mama last night and my wife, I was with yours too. You forgot she didn't call you for a long time. You understand? She got in at 2:30. You mad at me now because I know Tyson got in. You feel what I'm saying? Bird talks shit. Shit. Like we talking. Let me tell y'all something. Bird used to tell me, look here, man, I'm going to go shoot this shit jumper in your face right there in that corner, and it's going to be your Christmas present. I'm going to wrap it up and bust your head open. All that shit. He was the coldest dude I ever seen with that shit, man. Everybody be talking about these great greats, and they don't be always mentioning him. He was the shit. Yeah. Shit, man. He'll give it to you any way he wanted to. Any way he wanted to. Larry Bird was cold. But to fully understand why Jordan said what he said, you have to understand the world Larry Bird actually played in. Because the NBA of the 1980s and the NBA of today are not the same sport in any meaningful way. They share a name, a ball, and a basket. Everything else is different. X-Man told a story on Tim Thomas and Scoop Beast podcast about Larry Bird talking to you saying, I'm the best, man. Dion put a 3 in my balls. That's true. It is very true. But the 1980s NBA was physically violent in a way that the current generation of fans has genuinely never experienced watching basketball. Hand checking was legal, meaning defenders could put their hands directly on offensive players and push and grab and redirect them all the way up the court. Hard fouls were not just accepted, they were strategic. If you drove to the rim in the 1980s, you were accepting the consequences of what was going to happen in your body when you got there. Bill Laimbeer was not an accident. He was a feature. The Bad Boys Pistons did not invent that style. They perfected a style that already existed throughout the league. Would you consider yourself a trash talker? Not really. I mean, come on, coach. A lot of people do it to demean people. I did it for fun most of the time, right? 2 of my favorite people I got in the NBA, I got to stand next to Elvin Hayes at the center court. Loved him. And I stand there talking to Elvin. I said, Elvin, see Kevin there? He's talking bad about, what? I said, Kevin, tell him what you told me. He goes, what's that? I said, you gonna kick his butt tonight. He goes, hey, Elvin, I'm gonna kick your butt. That Kevin's a rookie. Stuff like that, you know. But it really wasn't vicious. Me and Chuck used to get into a little, I really liked Chuck. He knew I liked it. Oh, yeah. And but we had battles in terms of talking. Yeah, the one I remember was when you told Chuck, I'm going to go right here in front of our bench, I'm going to shoot on this spot, and I'm going to drain it. And he said, Merry Christmas, Mark. Nobody in that era talked about load management. If you could walk to the arena, you played. If you could limp to the line, you shot your free throws. The idea that a star player would sit out a regular season game to protect his body for the playoffs would have been received as cowardice in the locker rooms of that decade.
14. This is a tie for the money. Yes, Larry Bird at the buzzer with the 2-point ball, 17-15, defends the long-distance shootout crowd at Chicago Stadium. Our winner is Larry Bird. You showed up, you competed. That was the baseline expectation, and there was no conversation to be had about it. Larry Bird played in that world with a back that should have ended his career years before it actually did. The man had bone spurs in both heels that required surgery. He had chronic back problems that eventually forced his retirement. He had injuries that today would generate a lengthy injury report and a multiple-game absence. And Bird showed up anyway, told nobody about how much pain he was in, dropped 30 points on you while managing a body that was slowly breaking down underneath him. That is the foundation of why Michael Jordan feared Larry Bird. Not the stats, not the rings, the willingness to compete at that level through that kind of physical deterioration without asking for sympathy or accommodation. Jordan respected sacrifice because Jordan himself was built on sacrifice. And in Bird, he saw someone who matched and possibly exceeded that standard. Now let's talk about what Bird actually built before we get into the comparison with LeBron, because the resume deserves its own examination. Bird came from French Lick, Indiana, a town so small that calling it a town is generous. He was not a media-manufactured prodigy. There were no national television cameras following him through high school. There was no documentary calling him the chosen one. There was a kid who worked construction jobs and played basketball with an intensity that eventually dragged Indiana State University to the 1979 NCAA championship game against Magic Johnson and Michigan State, in what became the most watched college basketball game in history. That rivalry with Magic basically saved the NBA. The league was in serious commercial trouble in the late 1970s. Television ratings were declining, public interest was fading, and then Bird and Magic arrived in the league together, and within 2 years, the entire landscape of professional basketball had changed. Their rivalry was the engine that rebuilt the NBA into the global entertainment product it became. Bird joined the Boston Celtics, and in his rookie season, the franchise improved by 32 wins. 32! That is not a player contributing to an already good team. That is a player transforming a franchise overnight through the force of his presence and his competitive will. 3 MVP awards followed, 3 NBA championships, 12 All-Star selections, Rookie of the Year, 2 Finals MVP awards, all in 13 seasons, not 20, 13. And by the middle of those 13 seasons, every player in the league knew something specific about facing Larry Bird. It was not going to be comfortable. It was not going to be clean, and you were probably going to hear about everything you did wrong while he was doing it to you. Gary Payton is one of the greatest trash talkers in NBA history. He spent his entire career trying to get into people's heads before games, during games, and after games. And Gary Payton said on the All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson that Larry Bird was the coldest trash talker he ever encountered. Not because Bird talked more than everyone else, because Bird told you exactly what he was going to do and then did it. He removed the uncertainty. He eliminated the element of surprise. He told you the shot was coming, told you which way he was going to create space for it, and then took it right in front of you while you stood there knowing it was happening and being completely unable to stop it. Shawn Kemp, in his rookie season, had Bird tell him at the beginning of a game that it was going to be a long night. Bird gave him 40 points. Kemp said that experience changed how he approached the game for the rest of his career. A 40-year-old man with a bad back in the second-to-last season of his career psychologically dismantled a young athletic rookie so thoroughly that the rookie said it changed him permanently. Rodman tried to guard Bird closely in a game, and Bird kept yelling at Rodman's coach that he needed someone actually capable of guarding him. The closer Rodman guarded, the more Bird scored, and the louder he complained about being unguarded.
That is not just confidence. That is a specific kind of psychological warfare that very few players in any era have been able to execute at that level. Kobe Bryant, the most obsessive student of basketball who ever lived, studied Larry Bird's footwork, angles, and timing religiously. Kobe said Bird was always a step ahead mentally. For someone with Kobe's level of basketball intelligence to identify another player's mental processing as the thing that separated them from everyone else, that is not a casual compliment. That is one of the game's greatest minds acknowledging a superior mind.
Magic Johnson said Bird was his greatest rival, the one player who could outthink and outplay him on any given night. These two men defined basketball for a decade, and Magic looked at that entire body of competition and said Bird was the one who pushed him the most. Now, let's look at the numbers, because the stats argument is where LeBron supporters usually try to win the debate, and it deserves an honest examination. Bird averaged 10 rebounds per game for his career. LeBron averages just over 7. Bird was doing that rebounding in an era with Moses Malone, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Robert Parrish, and Charles Barkley competing for every possession. LeBron's rebounding numbers, while good for a wing player, exist in a different physical context entirely. Bird shot 88.6% from the free throw line for his career. LeBron shoots approximately 73%. In a sport where free throws are the most uncontested, most repeatable skill available, that gap is significant and it does not close over time. If anything, it widens in high-pressure situations where free throw percentage matters most. Bird shot 49.6% from the field, 37.6% from three, and nearly 90% from the line. That is a 50-40-90 season before that statistical benchmark even had a name. LeBron has never shot 90% from the line in any season of his career. He has never entered the three-point contest, despite playing in an era that celebrates and rewards three-point shooting more than any era in basketball history. Bird won the three-point contest 3 times in a row in 1986, 1987, and 1988. He walked into the locker room before his first one, looked around at the other competitors, and told them they were all competing for second place. Then he went out and won it without taking his warm-up jacket off during the final round. That is not arrogance, that is accuracy. The playoff numbers tell the same story. Bird averaged 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists per 36 minutes in the playoffs. Those numbers did not inflate with extra possessions or softer opposition. They were consistent, and they peaked in elimination games when the pressure was at its absolute maximum. LeBron has played longer. His career totals are larger, but totals accumulated over 20 seasons in a high-pace, high-scoring era with protective officiating are not the same as efficiency numbers produced in 13 seasons in a physically violent era where every point was genuinely contested. Jordan's comment cuts to the core of the difference. One of them was feared by legends. When you go through the list of the greatest players who ever lived and ask them about Larry Bird, they all describe the same thing: respect that contains an element of fear. The fear that comes from facing someone who is mentally and competitively prepared to beat you in ways you cannot anticipate or prevent. When you ask those same legends about LeBron, the conversation is different. He is acknowledged as talented and productive, but the fear component, the thing that makes Jordan specifically say he was afraid of Bird, is conspicuously absent from how the legends of the sport discuss LeBron. And the reason is simple. Bird's dominance was earned in a context where nothing was given and everything was fought for. LeBron's dominance, real as it is, exists in a context that has been progressively modified to protect star players, reward offensive production, and extend careers through load management and sports science. Jordan saw both versions of the sport. He played against Bird and Bird's era. He watched LeBron in LeBron's era. And his verdict was delivered in one sentence with no ambiguity and no diplomatic softening. One of them was feared by legends. The other one he did not have much to say about. The debate is over. Michael Jordan said it. Magic Johnson confirmed it. Kobe studied it. Gary Payton feared it. The greatest players who ever lived all pointed at the same person when the conversation turned to who they genuinely respected and feared. The numbers back it up, and the era makes it